So I guess we'll just jump right into it. So
Sure.
tell me what you're excited about right now.
Man, building this program, we're working to build a program, not just one successful season. The season we had this year was exciting and everything, but what I really want to do is help play a role. It's not just me. It's there's a lot of people involved, but building a program that is successful on the field. I mean, we won't make no bones about it. We want to win championships, but at the same time, develop a program that the school and the community is both proud of and involved in. We got a taste of that this year. I think we're still looking to pull the community into our program. It's tougher today. I mean, there's a lot of different things people can be involved in, whether it's athletics or other programs. You got the college right here in town, which is awesome, but some people are pulled that way. This is, I don't know if I really call this Southern Indiana, but there's still that kind of Southern Indiana basketball, feel to things. So basketball is still important. It's still an important wrestling school, obviously. We just had the retirement of a legend, and we hire a legend in that program, and wrestling will continue to be a big part of what Franklin High School is. But at the same time, we want to develop a program without competing against other programs or other things. We want to build a program that draws our community in, that they can celebrate, be proud of, be excited about, and it's a big undertaking. The history and tradition of football. High school football here is not deeply embedded as a culture. What I've seen and what I've looked at, Franklin High School has moments. You go all the way back to the 40s. They have moments, but I think there's only been 5 little periods where there's been multi-win seasons back to back. Going back to those early days, I think. Coach J.R. Bishop, towards the end of his career, I think he had about 3 or 4 multi-win seasons, winning seasons back to back, which transitioned right into Coach Trueblood's '69 team that went 9-0. So there was a span there of about 5 or 6 years, probably the best 5 or 6 years in Franklin football history. But it's kind of disjointed or disconnected, where there's only, the same way with players. I mean, I don't think our kids realize it, but man, we've got guys that have gone on and played in the Big Ten, have gone on and played at the college level, been outstanding players, all-star game players, but it's all kind of disconnected right now. And what we're trying to do is build a program that brings all that back together, unites the history of the program, celebrates the successful parts of the program, and try to build on the field right now, the current situation. We want to win the Mid-State Conference. If we feel like we can win the Mid-State Conference, we feel like we can compete in the sectional. If you can compete in our sectional and our regional right now, with New Pal in it, with Whiteland in our sectional, Cathedral and Decatur within our regional. I mean, if we can get to a level that we can compete Mid-State Conference, sectional, regional, we can win a 5A state championship, and that's the ultimate goal.
Okay. And so what types of things are you doing? We want to get there, but what are a few things that you're doing to try to build that program?
I think one of the first things that, in my opinion, I don't know if right or wrong, one of the first things we wanted to do was we wanted to put a quality team, a competitive team on the field on Friday night. The first step was the physical development piece. We were behind 3 years ago. When we got here, we physically were not where we needed to be to compete in the Mid-State Conference and in 5A football. So the off-season programs, the strength and conditioning, the speed and movement pieces, we got those going and built those up to a point now where physically we're getting closer to putting guys on the field that can compete against the top people on our schedule. So that was the most significant. The other part of that on the field success was developing our offense, which we brought an offensive philosophy here that we have been successful with in the past, and developing that takes a little bit of time, especially because we transitioned from one style of offense that was completely different to the style of offense we use. So skill development and things like that were a focus, and then the same thing defensively, trying to build that up. So we're trying to develop that on the field product, so to speak, but we're also trying to get going. We want to build those connections within our school building, which I think with the way we're developing players and addressing things off the field, I think from what I feel, from what I hear from people in our building, we're headed in the right direction there. So that connects our football program to our actual student body and staff. And the next piece, which we still probably we have to work at, we're not there yet, but connecting to the community, whether through community service, building relationships with community programs and leaders. So that's a piece that hopefully is going to take us to that next step as far as building a total holistic program that's helping kids when they leave high school, develop them for the real world, so to speak, but also developing a program that's successful, that's going to win, and pull people to us.
Okay. So in the off season, what types, like let's say from this year to next year, what are the main core things you're hitting on? So I know in general, talking about what you want to improve in general with the program, but step by step, every year is probably a different thing that you have a focus on. What do you have focused on this year going into next?
It's really a continuation of the philosophies that we brought in the first year, in 2016-17. It's becoming better, becoming more on those core philosophies. So we're trying to build on our discipline, for one, and discipline in a positive way, not discipline necessarily in behavior, but doing little things right. The level of consistency, and the New Pal game is a great example of that. They're so consistent. They don't make mistakes, whether it be fundamental mistakes, scheme mistakes. They're just so consistent in everything they do. That's an area that we knew we had to improve in, and we're putting that in front of our kids, and that goes all the way to, everybody knows you got to go get in the weight room. But you can't just get in the weight room. I mean, quality of movement, technique, if you're not paying attention to the little things there and building that foundation there, well, you're going to see the same issues pop up when you get on the field and things start happening fast, whether it's offensive lineman footwork, defensive backs, eye discipline, whatever. You can go down position by position. We have to be a more disciplined football team. And again, not like I said, our kids, we got great kids. We're not talking about behavior and things like that. We're talking about those fundamental elements of the game itself.
Okay. And what about, do you work on, when I was in high school, and I think even before me, at the base level, we didn't work on a ton on football IQ. And this, I've wondered why, and it's not one coach, it wasn't just the one coach or the coach before, it's been kind of a thing that's been common. Is that something you guys
Absolutely.
work on?
Yeah, and it's gotten better. I mean, for example, on the sideline during the game, this year probably more so than the previous two seasons. I mean, we're sitting over there with our offensive line, and we're communicating in our language. We're talking about the front, we're talking about techniques, and we're using a football language. So their understanding of things has continued to increase. Same thing, when we're talking to our quarterbacks and receivers, and we're identifying pieces of the coverage or individuals within the coverage, we're using our language. And we've worked hard as a coaching staff to develop that common language that makes communication easier, better. And to me, when you start talking about football IQ, if a kid can sit there and not just tell you what his responsibility is, but if he understands the why and he can communicate in whatever your program language is, that's when you start seeing, they're getting the game. Situational understanding, situational IQ. What to anticipate, on a 3rd and long as a safety. Where you need to be, in relation to the offensive players and the down and distance situation. That piece, I think the situational IQ is something we still need some work on, but the understanding of the game and being able to talk like a coach, I would say, like in the meeting room and on the field, that's increasing. Absolutely, you're 100% right. Without that, you're just kind of out there playing.
Yeah. And so I guess moving to this past year, what was special about this last year's team?
One, the unity, which we spend a lot of time working on, talking about. It was a tight-knit senior group, which also helped create a tight-knit team overall. The buy-in to what we were doing, we had some success, so there's some media, whether it's newspaper or television crews. We for the first time we had some of that down here. And to hear those kids repeat things that we're talking about, the things that we're saying. So it was, and you would expect that because it was year 3, and I think we've been pretty consistent in the messages that we've tried to send and the culture we've tried to build. So this group as a whole, we had great individuals in 17, we had great individuals in 18 that were trying to do the right thing, good senior groups, but this group, through that process, really picked up on what we were trying to do as a program, what we were trying to do schematically. So it was a neat thing to watch develop, because at the beginning of the season we thought we could be competitive, but we didn't know to what level, and to see that kind of play out, that was pretty special.
So when you're 15, 16, 17, your mind is everywhere, right?
Yep.
Your emotions are everywhere. You mentioned messages. What type of messages do you give to those young men so that they can stay on track and be one and be focused as a unit?
I think it starts with our approach. Our mentality is be the best you can be right now. Whatever level that is, be the best you can be right now. So that translates into a one day at a time, one play at a time, one rep at a time. So whether we're talking about a rep on a power clean in the weight room, or a rep in a team script on the practice field running our inside zone play, our focus needs to be on being as good as we can be right there. We can't take anything for granted, don't take any rep anywhere for granted, and we want to be the best we can be right now, and then build on that day after day. So I think that's the message we've been sending, that's what we've been trying to get across, that's what they're starting to pick up on. And that's something this next team is going to have to build on if we're going to keep raising the bar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so going back, when I volunteered to help with the freshman team, we had some behavioral issues, which is expected with that age of kids. And one of the other coaches and I came when we were talking to you, and you may or may not remember, but you told us right now with this age, it's not all about them winning. As much as they want to, as much as they're going to be mad if they lose by a touchdown or a close game, we want to make sure that they have great experiences. The players are, because right now you said they're not going to go and start varsity, right? And some of the players have so much growing to do that come 2-3 years from now, they're going to be completely different people. So we want to make sure they have good experiences so they can get to that point where they mature into the young men they're going to be. And so with that being said, I've seen a ton of those players on the field just absolutely killing it. And they're completely different young men than they were before. But that brings me to my question, which is, what are you doing to develop the young players? Are you working with the middle schoolers or even younger? And is that a plan in the future, if not? We have obviously our middle school season. We don't have a whole lot of interaction with them. I don't know how all other coaches do it, but with the workload that we have at the varsity level in preparing week to week for a game, it's hard to have that interaction. What we've tried to do is we run a spring camp at the end of May when track's over, school's still in. We work with them for about
about a week there, start building those relationships. That increases a little bit. And like I said, you had that experience as a freshman coach. We're around them. But again, it's difficult. We're not going to be right there on the field with them every moment, but we're continuing to try to build those relationships. There's programs, there's things that we do to help development, some of our off-season stuff, and building our culture, developing our leadership, and helping players develop both physically and mentally. But I think to me the biggest thing is relationships. It's starting with me, but continuing on down through our assistant coaches. If we're going to affect change in a positive way on a kid, whether it's physical change or mental behavioral change, we got to have a relationship with them. We're not perfect. We don't nail it with every single kid in our program, but that's where, when you're talking, when you step back and you had that experience with those kids, and then you're seeing 2 years later where they're at, I think that's the whole key. Is we have to, as coach leaders, have to connect with those kids so that they actually hear and understand our message and what we're telling them, what we're asking them to do. Because without that relationship, it basically falls on deaf ears.
So what do you think is going to be the biggest hurdle to overcome for you to get to where you want to be?
It's really, I think it's the overall culture or expectation. Football's a developmental game. It takes time, more than any other game. I mean, even in season, you're practicing 5 days and you get one game a week, and it only lasts 10 weeks. You don't play games in the off season. We have things we do, obviously, with scrimmages and stuff, within the rules the way they are today. But you don't get that opportunity. It's a tough game. I mean, if you're a basketball player, which I was in high school, I mean, you have your season, but you can go play pickup games in the park, or you got off-season games that you can play in. Same way with baseball. Football's not that way, so it's tough. And you've got to keep kids invested and working. I mean, it takes so much time. One, it takes a lot of time to develop physically. I mean, it just, growth in the weight room takes time. And the earlier we can start that, the better, within certain respects there. But I think that's the challenge here. That's the thing that we had to overcome, was that commitment to being able to compete at that level. It's a conscious choice. Yeah. It doesn't just happen. You don't just all of a sudden walk out there in August and compete with the best teams in the Mid-State Conference. So it has to be a conscious decision by our players, and really our families too, and any of our stakeholders that are Booster Club, all of those that are involved. We have to, one, you have to say, this is what we want to be, and then two, you have to understand what it takes, and the last piece, you got to be willing to do it. Yeah. And that's what we're working on or overcoming a little bit, is that football culture, that commitment to the game itself, and being that type of player, that type of team, that type of program. And I think in all honesty, that wasn't really here as a whole, prior.
Yeah. And I think now that, Franklin has had winning seasons before, but right. in recent history, not a lot, right? So this was the first one in a long time. And so I think with those young people, kids in middle school, or kids that are freshmen and sophomores, being able to see that and say, look, it is possible. Right. Just like when the mile record was broken, and now the marathon record's been broken. And so when those thresholds are broken, then everyone says, oh my gosh, it's possible. I can do it now. And just that mental block to say, it's worth going out and practicing. It's worth going to 2 days. Absolutely. Because we can have a winning season. Yep. We can go to sectional championship.
I think, when you ask about this year's team, I think, beyond the satisfaction that this year's team got for itself in being 8-3 and winning some big games, I think the valuable thing that they did for the program was give us a vision or a picture of what could be, exactly what you're saying. Now we know what we can be. Now when we go to these kids and we talk to the parents, about our off-season schedule, and this is the stuff that we have to do, and this is, things that are needed to get there, now there's something real that they can attach to that, and it can be done here. Absolutely.
So why did you choose to come to Franklin?
First off, the community. I was here in the mid to late 80s at the college. I enjoyed it down here. Tri-West was my home. That's where I was born and raised. It's where I went to school and played. It's where I went back to as soon as I graduated from the college. So, it still is my home. My parents are still up there. My wife's parents and, our families are still up there. But the appeal of going to a place that, this is a town, it's the county seat, it has the community high school is right here, just the opportunity to work professionally, I guess, in that setting. It's something, Tri-West is a consolidation, which I'm sure if you look back in history, Franklin's a consolidation of schools that were out on the perimeter. But Tri-West is a consolidation of 3 distinct communities. And it's a really, it's a great place to live. It's a great school. They do great things academically, a lot of success athletically. But I guess from a professional standpoint, the opportunity to work in that setting. And then there was also, there's a little bit of history with me being down here and the connections I had down here. There were people, obviously Coach McClure was working at the high school. There's other guys that were either played at the same time I did at the college, or I knew them because they were right before or right after. So knowing some people down here, and then once I met the leadership down here, it was like, yeah, professionally it was time. It was tough from a family aspect. Clayton, my youngest son, had just finished his middle of his sophomore year up there. He just finished 2 football seasons up there. To ask him to move was kind of tough, but as a family we discussed it, and coming down here and visiting, I love the area. From a personal standpoint, I love being able to hop in my vehicle, and next thing I'm in the hills and the woods, and I can get to Brown County or wherever. My kids love to fish, so there's all kinds of rivers, streams, and holes around here. So it's just a neat area. I like this part of the state. And then from a professional standpoint, the school, the leadership at the school, starting with Dr. Clendenning on down. The facilities, it just kind of fell in place, and it just felt right.
Great.
The challenge on the program too was, something that excited me as a coach after, being years up there and as a player and a coach, as assistant coach and a head coach. The challenge kind of reinvigorated me professionally as well.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
So moving a little bit personally, and we won't talk about too much. But tell me a little bit about your battle with cancer.
Let's see, that was in the winter after my first season. So in the winter of 2017-18, just noticed I had an issue, lump like a lot of people noticed, and then went to the doctors and stuff, and obviously you get that diagnosis, and that's a little bit of a shock and a smack in the face. But we dealt with the doctors up here at St. Francis, Dr. Garrett and radiation and so forth, just awesome people, great team of doctors. And, I'd like to sit here and tell you it was a great experience, but obviously it wasn't. Yeah. But the people that I dealt with up there in radiation and chemo were awesome. So, it was kind of a shocking deal. Yeah.
How did you approach that with your team?
Once we got the final diagnosis and the plan, and one of the things, there's a lot of different cancers and different treatments and different processes people have to go through. Early on, They told me that the cure rate was high and stuff, so that helped a little bit. So once we got all of that and I felt comfortable, we had a team meeting. I just told them the basics of what was going on, let them know that, I would be there like normal up to a certain point, and then probably, treatments would probably wear me down a little bit, and just told them, we were just going, business as usual. Here's what we got to get done, and it is what it is, and let's move forward.
Yeah. What was the hardest part about the whole process?
Well, the initial diagnosis. I mean, I guess deep down I knew. As soon as I felt the lump and stuff, I knew probably good chance. But when you get that doctor tell you that you have cancer, that was a shock and pretty difficult for that moment. Mm-hmm. But then after that, it really, I had a 7-week treatment plan. When you get to week 5, 6, and 7 physically, and to a certain degree mentally, that was pretty tough. That was probably the hardest part. Really, week 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, and then week after, the treatments are done, you're still 2, 3 weeks, dealing with the after effects of that, and it kind of just dissipates slowly. Physically, that was the toughest time, but, it was, we talk to kids, and I'm sure your coaches told you this, both at the high school and college level. We talk about how our game prepares you for adversity, and I've been telling kids that for years, mentoring kids through tough family situations or whatever. So it was like, dude, you've been telling kids this for years, you better take some of your own medicine here and buck up. And that's just the way we treat it. That's the way we try to treat it as a family, and the way I treated it individually. Here's what it is. Let's move forward and deal with it. And it is what it is.
What did you learn about yourself through the whole thing?
Probably mostly just I've been through some things on a personal level, within my family, with former players, whatever, that you deal with some of life's harsh realities. Mm-hmm. So I think I had a pretty good perspective on life. I love to win. I love to compete. I'm all in. But I also know that there are some other things that are more important. So when this came up and we were dealing with this, I don't think it really changed my perspective. I don't think I really learned anything new. I think it only enhanced my understanding that we can be all in and totally committed to our jobs, to our whatever our goals are and so forth. But when it comes down to it, the truly valuable things are family and relationships. And I think it just enhanced that. I mean, obviously when I first got that diagnosis and we really don't know what's going on, first thoughts running through your head is, man, I got a 24-year-old and a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, what the heck,
Yeah.
But as time goes on, you just kind of, like I said, I don't think it really necessarily taught me anything new. It just enhanced some of the things I already believed. Mm-hmm. And it did definitely enhance them. I mean, you feel that, wanting to make every moment the best, I guess, whether it's with your family or professionally or whatever.
Okay, that's great. What's something that you're most proud of that most people don't know about you?
Ooh, down here probably no, but I grew up in a rural setting. I grew up, parents, had horses from before I was born to, however long, mm-hmm. And I grew up, working for the farmer down the road. So I love horses. Mm-hmm. Up until the time I become a head coach, I rode a lot. Started colts, been around livestock and cattle most all my life. At some point there, we transitioned from just riding horses to when the boys were little, we got into rodeo, mm-hmm. And did that. And we don't get to do it a whole lot. The boys still go up and ride every once in a while. I probably haven't been on a horse maybe once or twice since I moved down here. Mm-hmm. But I love that. If I wasn't coaching football, I'd be riding horses daily probably.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I love horses. I love rodeo. Like I said, the kids competed. All three of the boys rode bulls when they were younger. A couple of them roped. Casey, my middle one, who's up at St. Francis, he's a pretty good roper. He doesn't get to do it enough to be really good, but because of football and everything. But yeah, I mean, that's outside of my school and football life and dress like this. Yeah, if I can put on a pair of Wranglers and an old pair of boots, I'm pretty happy.
That's So your kids being out on the football field, probably dealing with those massive animals. They're probably like, "Oh, this is nothing."
Yeah,
I got a huge linebacker coming at me. No big deal.
Yeah.
Look at that fullback could block me. No, I'll toss him out of the way.
I think there's a little bit of that. I mean, I think they competed at a pretty high level, and had some pretty good success. They didn't do the Little League baseball. I think a couple of them played 1 or 2 seasons. We didn't do the travel basketball and all that. But every summer, starting in the spring, even sometimes in the winter. But yeah, they were doing youth rodeo on up the line. And I think competing in that arena, just like competing, in some other sport, by the time they got to high school football, I mean. Cody had ridden bulls in the junior high national finals, at 11, 12, 13 years old or whatever. So I think, it doesn't matter what the sport is. For my kids, that's what it was. But when you have kids that compete on a stage like that, high school sports, I think they adjust to it quicker and earlier.
So how can we connect to you and to Franklin football and athletics and be support?
We're on Twitter.
Okay.
I'm at Coach Coll, and our football account is at Grizzly Cubs FB football. So we have a social media presence on Twitter. The school has an athletics website, so you can connect there, and you just you can Google FCHS athletics, and then on that school athletics site, you can go to the right tab there and click for football. One of our goals this off season is to really kind of update in our football page on the web, be a little bit more of a inside look and sales, so to speak, of our marketing of our program, because I think there's some things we can do there. Right now it's pretty basic, and we'd like to increase that. The Grizz Club, which is our booster club, is on Twitter, and it's I think it's at Grizz Club, but it's on Twitter. And then they also have a website which has some information on it. But I would say those areas is how you can take a look and see us and see what we're doing a little bit. We are trying to improve that area. It's difficult because we're teachers and work other jobs and so to speak. So it's not like IU, Purdue, or Ohio State. We don't have marketing marketing department that helps get this stuff out there. But we do promote our players. Like I said, our biggest presence is probably on Twitter. But we do market our player, not market, but we do promote our players and their accomplishments and what the team has done. So I would encourage people to follow us on Twitter. And then as we build our website, maybe a little more of a look at our program there. And then obviously our booster club, which plays a huge role in what we're trying to do, from a financial support and manpower and stuff and all those things, because we're really trying to add to the overall value of our program. We're trying to add to what we're doing, both in a way to support our kids and also help us be more competitive on the field. And football takes a lot. It takes a lot of people, takes a lot of resources. It's a big program. I mean, we're going to have over 100 kids every year in 9 through 12. I think we were around 109 this year. I think we were 120 maybe the year before, something like that. So it's a large group. It takes a lot of support. We got a lot of people involved in helping. Our youth football league is on the web. They're also on Twitter, FYFL, Franklin Youth Football League. If you've got young kids out there, you can take a look at what we're offering, how we're doing things on their website. And then, anytime anybody wants to talk Franklin football, I'm available. I mean, parents, whatever, community members, I believe in our program. I believe in what we're doing. I believe in this community and the value of what a strong competitive football program can provide for a community. So, I'm always willing to talk Franklin football.
Great. And I'll put all those links in the bio. So if anyone's watching the video, they can go and click that.
Awesome.
And so last, I have two final questions that I ask all my guests. But before, I just want to recognize you for bringing the excitement back to Franklin football and giving as we talked about before, giving those younger players the confidence to come out and say, we can do it. But more importantly, for your leadership and not only preaching the things and giving them great advice to build as young men, but for walking the walk as well and really leading them, those kids through that. So thank you. So last two questions. It's your last day. And everything's gone. You've accomplished what you want to accomplish, but no one's going to remember that, right? What impact, if you could leave one impact on your family, on your friends, on the coaches you've coached with, and all your players, what would you want that impact to be?
Well, I guess I would want to break that up just a little bit. I mean, the players, and we talk about this as a coaching staff, and I feel this way. I mean, you judge a lot on wins and losses and success and stuff like that. Individual players want playing time. I can't guarantee any of that. There's stuff that we work hard at. At the end of the day, I can put my head on the pillow and go to sleep knowing that I'm doing everything I can that helps these kids be successful after they leave our program. So what makes me the most proud and what I want more than anything, what I hope I leave our players is that 5 years from now they can look back on their experience in Franklin football and say, I'm a better worker, I'm a better boss. 10 years from now, slow them down a little bit. 10 years from now, I hope they can say I'm a better husband and father, and because of the experiences I had in the Franklin football program. If I can leave that to them, then I feel like beyond the wins and losses, that's what I'm really here for. For my family, I hope when it's all said and done, my kids look back and they tell their kids good stories, happy stories about their grandpa, and I hope that's the way I feel about my dad and my mom, and I hope that's what my kids, I hope that's what I leave them with. If they look back on their childhood, the things that they experienced with us as a family and with my wife, I hope that's what we leave our kids. And I same way with my wife. I hope when it's all said and done, she looks back and smiles and, it was a good life.
And what's your final question? What is your definition of a great leader?
Definition-wise, I don't know if I could necessarily define it because I think there's a lot of components to leadership. I think the first thing, when you talk about a great leader, I think at any level, I think a leader has to have an understanding of what the goal is, has to have a vision. Just leading, you got to have somewhere you're going. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what the goal is, but I think that's probably one of the first things that you have to understand or buy into. If you're a president and you're the leader of the country, you've got a big vision, a big overview. You understand that. If you're a teacher in a classroom, you have this vision of what you want your classroom to be. If you're a leader on a football team, you may not necessarily set all of the objectives or what the vision is, but you understand what the program is about. You understand where the program's trying to go. So I think the first thing you have to have is that vision, that understanding. You have to have some source of a sense of purpose. And then beyond that, I think probably you got to have the ability to develop relationships and make those people around you better. Some people are great in going out and being successful as an individual, but I don't know that you're really, truly a leader unless you can bring people with you and make those around you, the group, the organization, the team, the country, whatever the case may be. If you can make those around you better, That's ultimately what a leader does. Other than that, you're just a successful individual.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
in.
That was great, man. Love it. Thank you.
All right.